Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Getting Started with Open Source. Our guest for tonight is a brilliant and an influential person who's achieved something that many can only dream of. He's an excellent mentor, endowed with encyclopedic knowledge and a forthcoming personality. He has extensive expertise in full stack web development, Java, Ruby, front end development, and various other technological fields. He got into the Google Summer of Code program at Harvard in 2019 and is now a software developer at Google itself. He bagged this wonderful opportunity almost right out of his undergraduation, which speaks volumes of his proficiency in this field. Not to mention the 30,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, where he shares his experiences, travels, and very helpful things. Without further delay, we would like to invite Mr. Sanket Singh to share with us his deep understanding of all things open source and give us an exclusive look into the mindset of an open source contributor. We welcome you, sir.
Hi, Nitesh. Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks for the warm welcome. I really appreciate that. And I believe everyone is doing well, working fine, right? So, cool. Yeah, as Anitesh told, so today we are here to talk a bit about open source. In to be honest, in my opinion, open source is not something that anyone can teach you, or anyone can, I would say, give you a roadmap about. Rather than open source is something which will be better understood if we can have a good discussion, if we can collaborate, if you know the meaning of collaboration, if you know the meaning of teamwork, if you know how, like, if you're passionate about software development, no matter wherever you are, whatever you are doing, then you can actually understand about what open source is and what it actually demands, right? So we're going to talk about that. I'll tell you about my story around open source. As I said, there is not going to be any roadmap or any like shortcut trick that you guys can get, but yeah, it will be something that I can share based on my experience, not only from my open source experience. Now, like, it's been more than 2.5 years since I've been working as a full-time engineer. That experience also have, I would say, collaborated and like inculcated in my day-to-day work life. So yeah, we will be talking about that. But before that, like, really thanks to VIT for like setting up this session and giving me the stage to like talk to all of you guys. Feel free to like drop your comments in the chat. I would be really happy to answer them. Anything that you want to ask, I would be really happy to answer them. A brief about me. I'm a computer science grad, not from a fancy college, to be very honest, and like graduated from New Delhi, Maharaja Agrawal Institute of Technology in 2020. So yes, I am a COVID graduate, right? But I gave my 3 years of BTech exams offline, and my final year exams offline. So please don't judge, right? And Yeah, right after college, I joined few companies. I initially interned and worked as a full-time engineer for quite some time with interview bit. Then just after my college exams, joined LinkedIn India as a full stack engineer. I'll talk about my open source, I would say, experience at LinkedIn also. There was some open source stuff that I was involved with, right? And later I joined Google as a software engineer, right? To be very honest, it's a very wonderful experience to work with all of these big tech giants and working with all of these companies. And obviously, it gives you a lot of experience, and it gives you a lot of, I would say, um, a culture that these companies possess around open source softwares, libraries, and contributions. So yeah, we're going to talk about a lot around this. Any questions that you guys want to ask, feel free to ping in the chat. So first of all, what is open source? Also, first of all, if you guys are expecting a PPT, I am not a PPT guy, so please don't expect that. Yeah, I will be writing a few things. I'll share the screen so you can get a better context on that, because I believe rather than writing on a PPT what is open source and then speaking about it, I can show you some really good, interesting insights on some very cool websites that will help you to actually understand what is open source. So what is open source, right? When you hear about this term open source, a lot of people think about that, okay, this is some shortcut to get a very great job. It's not like that. I heard this term open source, I believe, back in 2013. when I joined my class 11th. So in CBSE, that was the first batch when Python got introduced. And I obviously, in CBSE schools, the only book that we refer is Sumita Arora. So the first definition that was written, that what is Python, and the first line that was written there, I still remember that. I'm not sure if they have changed it now. That Python is an open source language, and so on and so forth. It does a lot of things, the rest of the definition. So I got introduced to the word open source in probably the first line of my first textbook of my first day in programming, right? So you can see the impact what open source softwares and open source things have created already in the market, right? So what open source is any piece of software. When I say software, then I don't mean fancy Microsoft Office or Google Chrome only is a software, no, but a lot of libraries that works behind the scenes also, end-to-end softwares, back-end frameworks, front-end frameworks. A lot of things are there which are open source, and when I say it is open source, then the source code of that corresponding library or that corresponding software is available to you to see, explore, and to be very honest, even make some changes, right? So I believe everyone has already used something called as VLC, right? in as far as I know, in my class 9, 10th, I used to see movies only on VLC. So VLC is also one of the most, I would say, famous open source software, right? So what you guys can do is you guys can just open Google and you can just write VLC GitHub, right? And you will be able to actually find the source code for the VLC, right? And see, just 3 hours ago they have made some change. I'm not sure what, but they have made some change. You can see how many people are contributing. Approximately 568 people have already contributed to VLC media player. The major part is written in C++, Objective C, and C language, right? So you can like search about anything, right? You might have heard about Chromium browser, so you can write Chromium GitHub, and you will be able to find the open source version of Chromium. Like on Chromium only the rest of the I would say browser Chrome and all is based. So you can see all those people who are contributing. 8 hours ago Chromium was, I would say, some changes were made in Chromium. Again, a lot and lot of softwares are present that are open source, right? You might have heard about Node.js. So you can go to Node.js GitHub, and you can actually see the source code of Node.js. Nowadays, who doesn't know about Node.js, right? So you can see all the projects that Node.js org is involved in and the actual Node project as well. So this is the power of open source. This is the power of open source, right? This is the thing that you guys can explore. You can actually see that how the libraries, the languages that somebody is using, like we guys use these languages, how other half of the world is actually creating it, right? How they are contributing to it, how they are writing so much cleaner code, right? This is the power of open source. So first of all, the source code is available to for you to see anywhere, anytime. You guys can even make some changes to the source code, right? And you guys can propose your change, and if the maintainers of the project, if they see that okay, there is no issue with the change that you are making and it's a sensible change, they will actually merge your request into the project. This is the best part. And even added advantage is everything in open source is free. I have never seen any open source software asking for money. So that's the best part about open source. So I believe you guys got a good gist around open source. Let me see if there are any questions in the chat. uh, Thanks, Dipanshu. um, yeah, cool. Okay, so as I showed you few of the projects, even languages like Python, Ruby, all of these are open source languages. You guys can go and check out their, I would say, source code. You might have heard about frameworks like Flutter. You might have heard frameworks like React, Angular. All of these are open source, right? So when I started my open source journey, to be very honest, it was around 2019. So I was interning with ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, and one of my fellow research intern, he was from my own college only. He asked me to like explore a bit around open source because he already once qualified for a GSOC 1 year back, right? So he said that okay, you all also know a bit of web dev, and I'm also interested in this field only. Let's explore a few projects because GSOC was also already around the corner. So we thought that okay, let's just start making some contributions and let's just start actually exploring things. I was not very much sure about how things in open source work. And at that time, the two major things that I already knew was Ruby on Rails and a bit about Express.js in the framework. So technically, language is Ruby and JavaScript, right? So I thought that okay, let's explore some good projects that I can find around JavaScript or maybe Ruby, right? And this is something that you guys can also do, right? A lot of people ask me questions around how to start with open source, how can I contribute to open source. I believe that whatever you already know, there must be something in the open source world that is using that same technological stack. You know, C++, there are softwares around C++. You know, Java, you can go ahead with Java, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, whatever it is, right? So the first step of how to start with open source, you have already done it, that you know some basic language, you know some basic framework, and bang on, you are already ready to start. There is nobody else who is going to tell you that okay, click here, do this, do that. No, you have to start exploring, right? You have to start exploring. That's how open source is actually dealt. That's how open source is actually done. So at that time I actually explored few projects, and luckily I was exploring through a lot of website. I also explored through the previous year Google Summer of Code website, right? At that, and I shortlisted few projects. I still remember I shortlisted three projects. Two projects were from Harvard University. One project was from Amahi. Amahi is also an open source organization. I won't tell a lie, but I was not able to set up the project of Amahi. It was a Rails project. I was facing some issues with the Rails project, but the both the Harvard projects I was able to set up. And as soon as I set up the project, I was blank. Like, now what? What should we do now? It's a quite a huge project where we can go. And that's when I figured out the second step of open source. That's when I figured out the second step of open source, that it's better to communicate rather than getting confused, rather than thinking what to do, what not to do. I actually mailed the maintainers of the project, right? I still remember the like few of the people who were working with Howard University at that time. I mailed them, and within 24 hours, not even like more than 24, within 24 hours, like the moment their actually next day started, they replied me that okay, you can go forward, you can follow this link, we have this documentation there. And they bombarded me with hell lot of information, which was sufficient for me to get started with the project, right? So I can also show you guys finally what project I contributed to. So you guys can just go to my GitHub, right? And this is the question tool app. So this is from Berkman Center. You guys can see this Berkman Clean Center is the, I would say, branch inside Harvard University that actually manages all the open source stuff. So you can see they actually link to harvard.edu, right? They have a lot of projects. Lumen database also was there, which on which I was trying to contribute, right? So this was the project, the question tool app that I actually contributed to, majorly written in JavaScript and Meteor.js. You guys can go to the pull request and see what features actually I contributed and what are some new features that are coming up, right? So this was the project, and see, this is the power of open source. Whatever I contributed to, whatever I actually created, updated, everything is available on the internet for anyone to verify. And the pull requests that I have made are actually verified. They are actually reviewed from the maintainers who are working at Harvard University. It was a big thing for a third year undergrad like me, right? And that time I realized that okay, open source is definitely going to give me a good platform to showcase my skills, right? The amount of good JavaScript knowledge, the amount of good code writing knowledge that I got during the tenure of Google Summer of Code was like unbeatable till now. To be very honest, if I combine my experience of good code writing from LinkedIn and Google combined, I would say it was equivalent to the 3 month experience that I got during GSOC, right? So that was the learning experience that I got, and obviously my fellow GSOCers also were feeling the same, right? So open source is going to give you a platform. It's not a shortcut, it's not a one way path or anything. It's going to give you a platform to actually explore your interest and actually showcase your skills, right? A lot of colleges in India don't get very good opportunities from top MNCs and top startups. But open source is not going to bias anyone, right? Open source is something where anyone can contribute. no matter which college you are, no matter even if you are working, if you're a student or if you're a school student, doesn't matter. Anyone, everyone can contribute, and there is no partiality, nothing like that based on college or anything. So this was the best part. So first of all, I would say that if you want to start with open source, you already know some stuff. If you are in college or maybe you are into computer science, you maybe know one language, C++, Java, something. Don't wait for anyone to come and tell you that okay, this is a very good project, this is a very good feature, start contributing on this feature. No, figure out the project yourself, figure out the feature yourself. There can be a case that you might try to set up 4 or 5 projects, and after the 5 project, the sixth project you set up, that is something that actually kicks the actual interest inside you, right? So this is something that is very important in open source. You need to get going, you can't stop, you can't wait for anyone. Nobody is going to hold your hand and take you forward in the journey of open source. Now talking about GSOC, so GSOC, again, a lot of people think that GSOC is one way to get a interview at Google or something. From my year 2019, Google stopped giving referrals, direct referrals to those students who were qualified for GSOC. Till 2018, it was a clause there. Till 2018, it was. From 2019, it was not there. So if you are someone who is like looking only for an opportunity at Google, then I'm sorry, this is gonna be heartbreaking for you. But there was something like, if you are going to mention GSOC, that you have qualified for GSOC, and you will mention the relevant links, then and you apply at Google, then definitely the recruiters are going to notice you. That was mentioned, but there is no referral or anything that is going to be involved. So if that is your motivation, I'm sorry, open source might not be the thing that you want to go, right? Now Gaurav is asking how to find an open source project. So Gaurav, I was having the same question during my I would say hunt for a good project. I first of all, at that time I knew C++ and Java also, but I first of all focused that okay, I either want a Ruby project or I either want a JavaScript project, no matter what framework. I ended up doing a Meteor JS based project. I believe only 3 people in the world knows Meteor JS: me, the project maintainer, and the one who created Meteor. Nobody nowadays uses Meteor because no big company is backing it up. But the thing is, you have to first of all narrow down your search, that okay, I know this tech stack, I want a project related to this. The second thing you can do is Google it. You can find top 10 projects or famous open source projects, things like this. Even you can go to Google Summer of Code archive. In archive, previous year projects that students qualified for and contributed to are mentioned. So you can directly filter there that okay, you want a JavaScript project, just filter based on JavaScript. Whatever project was related to JavaScript, and all the projects will get listed, and you guys can one by one go. It's gonna be a tedious task. Don't think it is going to be easy. Nothing is cakewalk in life. But the best part is you can try n number of times, you can fail n number of times, because nobody is watching you, right? Nobody is watching you that you were not able to set up the project, you are not able to get a good project. Hustle again and again, try again and again, and the first project that actually hits you, you are able to set it up, you are able to make some changes, you're able to understand the coding structure, you're able to understand their style of coding, you're able to understand the documentation, you're able to connect with the community. That's the first project I believe that you can start contributing to. How to set up the project? I believe any open source project that you will find, there are dedicated instructions written, right? Sometimes there can be a case that whatever environment you have set up in your laptop or a PC might not directly collaborate with the requirements of the project. I faced the same issue in on like during my days. There was some issue with the RVM, Ruby Version Manager, and I was not able to set up one project from Amahi. But I would say that follow the instructions step by step. If you're not able to actually understand before going forward and just hitting the command, try to read about the command, that what the command does, what they're expecting it to be, so that you actually understand that what you did, right? So I believe setting up the project is going to be a step by step process. You have to try, right? This is something that I also follow during my in my data structure and algorithmic code. A lot of time I have something in my mind, I have some logic in my mind, but not that concrete. So I start writing something. I start writing that, okay, this thought is clear, this thought is clear. I start writing, and the moment I start writing the code, I start structuring the code, the rest of the logic automatically gets concrete. So it's all about getting that start. You have to just put your first foot forward, and there is no turning back. Open source is going to be so addictive. So just follow the steps. You can take help from the community. So there are dedicated Slack channels, Telegram channels, community, other messaging channels, IRC channels, mailing list. You guys can just go and enroll yourself. You guys can be quiet, but the moment you want some help, or the moment you know that you can help someone, it's the time you can get activated, right? So that's what I did. Also, I messaged Alan Popko, like the maintainer of the project, and I asked that, okay, I'm facing difficulty in this, I'm not able to understand this. They bombarded me with a hell lot of information, and that was enough for me to actually start the project. And I guess that's what you want also. So just try to interact. Open source is nothing that you can just close yourself in a room and just do. You should know how team works. You should be open to collaboration, right? Somebody maybe in so like in my case, there was one developer in US, one developer in Poland, I was there in India. Three different time zones of the world. So you should be very much comfortable with collaboration. And just telling, like, this experience that I got in 2019 of working with different time zones, now at working at Google, I'm getting actually help from that, because I already had an experience to collaborate with people in different time zones. Now at Google, in my team, some people are working in the US, some people are working from Amsterdam, some people are working in Poland, some people are working in Singapore, some people are working in India. So like a hell lot of difference in time zones, right? And I know how to collaborate. So that's one more learning that I got, that how to collaborate no matter what is the situation. So go ahead, talk to people, talk to the community. They will help you in setting up the project. So, how to manage CP with dev, cause having good project is also necessary in interviews. Nishant, I believe that's a very easy thing to do. What I used to do was I used to participate in hackathons, and I always tell my students to participate in hackathons. See, if you will sit at home and start doing some project, it's not going to work, right? You will get bored, you won't be having motivation. So there are two things you can do. Either you can start contributing to open source softwares if you are getting interest in that. Please don't do it for the sake of doing it. If you're getting interest in open source, if you feel that contributing to an open source software, contributing to a bigger level project is going to give you that kick, do it. Otherwise, you can participate in hackathons. Hackathons are like a 10-day effort, 10-day team effort. Every time in a hackathon, most of the times, you are going to make a new project. So even if you participate in 4 hackathons in 4 years, you are going to get 4 very good project, that not only you, 3 4 people combined collaborated. So the scope of the project also increases, and maybe you will win the hackathon. That will also add a line in your resume. So that's my suggestion on how to manage it, how I used to manage it. It's, you are not going to win always, but definitely you are going to get a project experience, teamwork, and definitely an awesome environment of a lot of developers coming at a place, doing the hackathon. Very good feeling. Deploying my products as freeware or as an open source, which is better. I believe that depends on your use case, Pranav. If I was there, I would have like deployed it as an open source so that other people can also contribute. And I believe if there are contributors to your open source project, you guys, they easily find a lot of bugs that you might miss. So in my opinion, maybe open source, but again, it's a thing of perception. You can do anything. If the project written in different language, but I know different language, can I contribute in that, or they will accept my PR if I can? uh Boni Dua, just remember one thing: in open source there is no bias, there is no, I would say, discrimination. They don't care about your resume. In your resume, if you are a doctor, they don't care. The only thing that they care is the pull request that you have made is working, it makes sense, it's properly documented, it's written as clearly as possible, it the test cases are written, things like these. They are expecting you to be an engineer, or I would say software engineer. They don't expect you to have a degree of software engineer, or they don't expect you to be a master in JavaScript, if that's a JavaScript project, a master in C++. No, if you're passionate, you will eventually learn. Languages change, right? Every year we get a new version of JavaScript, dude. So you can't know one language completely. Nobody knows one language completely. So they don't even expect that. It's not like interviews that you have to prepare something. They just want someone passionate. They just want someone enthusiastic about open source, right? Cool. I anyone any other questions also I would be happy to answer. Right. So for if some people generally do ask about GSOC, again I'm telling GSOC is first of all not a competition. Please don't say that how I can like get selected or do things and that do this and that. GSOC is an opportunity. Consider it as an opportunity where you can collaborate on a big open source project dedicatedly for 3 months. Like you will be having a timeline, you will be having review cycles, right? Like a normal, like if I would be interning somewhere, there are also review cycles after every 3 weeks, right? So you get a even better experience than an intern during things like GSOC, right? So like during my year in 2019, I'm not very sure about the latest rule. The most important rule that I know nowadays is going on is you don't need to be a college student anymore. In 2019, you have to be a college student. You should hold a college degree, but nowadays that constraint is gone. So during my time there were like 3 dedicated review cycles. You have to pass 3 dedicated review cycles. When I say review cycle, then review cycle include everything. Whatever features you have contributed, are they working? Are you following the timeline? Are you actually enthusiastic about open source? Are you communicating well? Everything. Are you a team player? Everything is going to be considered. So there are dedicated review cycles, right? There is a dedicated mentor that has been allocated to you, who is going to actually look over the whole project along with you. So this is like an opportunity that you can use to learn, right? And trust me, if you will see this as an opportunity rather than a competition, the world will be a better place. So GSOC, and again, don't feel that if you will get GSOC, you will get a very good placement. No. In my college, people are working in Twitter, people are working in Microsoft, people are working in Google, Amazon, you name it, they are there, and they don't have a GSOC certificate, right? Or they have never done GSOC. So GSOC is not a competition. It's an opportunity where you will meet a lot of people. Like there will be dedicated mailing channels, groups. You won't realize that how many people now know you, how many people you can directly reach out without any constraint who are ready to help you. It's it's a different level platform that Google organizes every year. And definitely the organization that you are part of, if the like most of the organization, like I'm not experienced with like every organization, but a lot of friends of mine were there as a like as a GSOC participant. So I know about a lot of organizations, how they treat their GSOC participants. They are like really good. They help you a lot, and it's a no nonsense stuff, right? I know a lot of companies who during their internship don't even give a good project, or sometimes for 3 to 4 weeks don't even do give anything for their interns to do. They just ask them to complete their courses and everything. But things like open source, it's a no nonsense platform. You just come there, you collaborate, you meet new people, you learn, you grow, and you make the software. It's fun, but it's not funny, right? I believe you guys get the difference between that. So open source saves a lot of time, I believe. If I would have interned for 3 months in like a very big MNC ABC, I would not have got that much experience that I got from open source. That's why I'm inviting you guys also to just start it. Don't wait for anyone to help you. Don't wait for anyone to give you a roadmap on that. Just start it. There are dedicated channels and resources. There is a very good channel from Kunal Kushwaha. He's from my college only. He talks a lot about open source stuff. So you guys can definitely refer his YouTube channel, right? He brings a lot of people around open source community. He's doing some good work there. So there are people who can give you some basic guidance, right? There are these videos and everything are there for guidance, but you have to make the first effort, right? Nobody is going to come to your laptop and actually start coding for you. You have to code it yourself. But after 3 star in the quarter, the level of the question increased from like, what should we do? Nishant, I know, I guess this is um, different from the topic that we are discussing, but if you are still facing that issue, I follow one strategy. Let's say if you are in a contest and you are able to solve 2 questions only, that's good. In next context also, if you are able to solve 2 questions only, try to solve the first 2 questions faster. Let's say in one contest you were able to solve it in 1 hour. In the next contest, solve it in 30 minutes, so that you get remaining 30 more minutes for the next question. So you will be giving more thought to the next question, right? So if your rating is not increasing for some time, at least your speed will increase. And with time, when you will learn new topics and you will realize that, okay, this question was from this topic, this question was from that topic, you will learn the topic and eventually grow. But at least from that, some that plateau comes for everyone. Like you are, there is a plateau of I would say star that you are at. But after some time, if you I would say learn the data structures well, learn the algorithms well, things will work fine. Does that point make sense? Okay. So I can also show you guys one more thing. Just a moment. Just a second. So how GSOC and open source helped me to write good documentation. I probably believe I can show you that. I should be having it. One second. Okay, yeah, I have it. So like open source also like taught me how to write good documentation, right? So this is my proposal that I actually submitted for GSOC 2019. You can see that this proposal got selected. I only submitted one proposal. During my time, people could submit like three proposals. I only submitted one, got selected in that, right? So like how to write good documentation was something that I learned, right? So this was like my basic experience. So in the I would say this documentation, they expect you to write project goals, right, and project timelines. So I actually learned that how you guys can write good documentation. This was something very very important for me, right? Nowadays also, when you will be joining some company, some startup, some MNC as a software engineer, you have to write 1 or 2 pager docs for every feature generally that you are doing, right? Whenever you write a feature, you have to write a corresponding context 1 pager doc, so that anyone else who is going to read your feature knows why you actually made the feature, what was the expectation, how you did that, this thing, that thing. So open source is going to teach you a lot of stuff apart from programming, apart from team building also, like documenting your code, well documentation of the code, well project description of your code is something that open source really tells you. So during my proposal only, I added a lot of code snippets so that people who are reading this document are actually going to understand what libraries I will be using for actually implementing a feature, what code I'm going to write. It's not the final implementation, but it gives some context around what can be expected, right? Here you can see I also proposed a timeline. So later, maybe if I'm leading some project in my company, I know how to actually propose timelines, how to actually document the timelines, how to set up realistic timelines. Because the best part about my experience during open source was I was able to complete every feature within the timeline. This was the main achievement that I believe that I actually had. So I guess I can share you this document. Yeah, I'm not sure if my uh, link is going there in the chat or not. Uh, right, I'm not sure, but you guys can get it from my LinkedIn. Right, on my LinkedIn page, this link to the proposal is there. Right, you guys can like refer it. Okay, so this was also one more thing that actually open source helped me with. I'm not sure. Let me know in the chat if you are able to open the link. If you're able to open the link, let me know in the chat. Everyone is able to open the chat, open the link. Anyone?
You can share the link in the private chat. We'll add it to the video.
Okay, cool. Cool. I guess that works fine. I guess that works fine. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I already talked about like how you guys can write good documentation, right? If you want to apply, not only GSOC, there are other opportunities also. There are like dedicated opportunities for girls in open source also, because like the whole community is very welcoming, right? Wherever you contribute, the whole community is very welcoming, right? And organizations like Google, LinkedIn also focus a lot on open source development. So now I'm going to tell you about my experience, how open source actually helped me during my work at LinkedIn, during my work at Google, right? So just a moment. Uh, okay, yeah. So at LinkedIn, when I joined LinkedIn, I joined as a full stack engineer. So I was working with front end features also. I was working with back end features also, right? In the front end, I was working with Ember.js, and Ember.js is an open source front end framework. In the back end, I was working with REST.ly. I'm sure you might have never heard about REST.ly. You can search on Google rest.ly. It's an open source backend framework built by LinkedIn. Right? It's not that famous yet, but LinkedIn as a company has also contributed to the open source community and released their backend framework as an open source software. Right? So even when I'm working in these big tech giants, right, I'm working on technologies that are open source, right? At Google, you might have used Google Pay, right? Google Pay is a very, very famous application, right? Or you must have used Google Home, right? So things like Google Pay are built in Flutter. Flutter, again, open source. Google Home, it's built in Kotlin and the native Android. Again, everything open source, right? So even when you are working in very big tech giants like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, there are set of proprietary libraries and softwares that they have built on which you have to contribute. But again, there are a huge, and I would say humongous set of technologies which are open source that the company not even backs but actually uses it in their day-to-day development lifecycle. That's the beauty of open source. These big tech giants who have got like hell lot of money still depend on these open source technologies, right? So the knowledge that you are going to get, the experience that you are going to get from open source is actually going to help you during your work at all of these companies as well. This is the best part, right? Ayush, uh, gone are the days when I actually felt there is a difference in degree, BCA, BTech. To be very honest, BTech never taught me a lot of things. The only thing BTech taught me was good time management. And I'm not sure about IITs and NITs, but rest of the college folks, if somebody comes and tell me that in BTech I learned this, I'll be like, you could have learned that without BTech also. The only thing good BTech teaches us about is time management, I believe. So I believe the same for BCA like degree as well. So don't worry if you are having a BCA degree or something. There are like you can do MCA that's equivalent to BTech. BCA plus MCA is equivalent to BTech. So don't worry, a degree is never going to stop you in growing in the tech industry. uh, Degree is just now tech, definitely I feel it's just a piece of paper. You know when degree is required? So when you will apply to the company, you will be then, let's say, shortlisted, you will give interviews, you will get selected, you will get your offer letter, you will get your compensation number that okay, this company is going to, let's say, offer you 40 lakhs CDC, 50 lakhs CDC, 80 lakhs CDC, whatever it is. You will get that number, you will sign the offer letter, you will talk to your hiring manager. After that, after all of this, then HR will come to you and ask for, please send your degree for verification. That piece of paper, the only value it holds is to verify you that you are who you say you are, right? They just call the college or university that, okay, this is the roll number of the guy, this is the roll number of the girl. Is this from your college university? They just say yes, and the phone is cut. That's that piece of paper just after even like 3 months of your graduation or post graduation is going to be used for verification. Trust me, my roommates, anyone, nobody has ever used that degree. They just ask us for the degree during the verification. So don't worry. No matter what degree you have, it's just for verification. For work on your skills. That's gonna matter in the longer run, right? And I'm whatever I'm telling, whatever I'm telling, it's not a script. It's based on my experience, right? And my friend's experience. I'm not saying anything that is just keeping one data pointer, that is me. Everything that I'm telling you happens with my friends also. So I can't like tell you anything that I have never experienced or something, right? I guess that answers your question, Ayush. Right? Any more questions? Any more questions, guys? Any more questions? So you guys can check out a lot of YouTube channels that are there for helping you on how to get started, right? Uh, like Arnav Gupta, I believe you know, he has also posted few videos around how you can start up with open source. Kunal has posted a lot of videos that you guys can use for like going through open source and things like that. So check them out and see, does it excites you? There is just one request: if you're doing open source for getting a good job, don't do it, because you will eventually get good job if you have skills. Please don't pollute open source for getting, for the sake of a job. Open source is a different level of thing, it's a different community. Treat it like that. If you're enthusiastic about open source, go ahead, start doing it. There was a question, how we learn in your point of view. I believe learning in my point of view is whenever I learn anything, like let's say any algorithm, I technically see the fact that how I somebody would have thought it when they've thought it for the very first time. Think about it. Heap sort. If you'll ask people what is heap sort, they will just say that okay, heap sort is this. You take a heap, take the element from the last, and put the element to the last, and so on and so forth. I never learned heap sort that way. I know selection sort. I know selection sort. The bad part about selection sort that leads to the complexity of order of n square is that when you are getting the minimum element, you have to do a linear search because it's an unsorted array, right? Now, in an unsorted array, how can you get a minimum in a better complexity? By maintaining a data structure named as heap, right? And replacing the linear search with heap is heap sort. Just go read the algorithm, your mind will be blown. So just think about the facts, like if you are learning it for the very first time, or somebody thought of it for the very first time, what logic they might have thought for. Maybe that's not the exact logic that they would have thought, but you will get your story. If you have a story behind every algorithm, if you have a story behind every logic, things are going to be easy for you, right? Can you get copyright issues if you use open source on your own personal project? Nope. Uh, I don't think so. Like, as far as my knowledge goes on, nope. Like, these are languages and like these are libraries and framework made for helping people. It's not for screwing anyone because they used it. So don't worry. I guess things should be fine, right? Any more questions?
Yes, we have another question.
How to
How to
develop
develop?
confidence to contribute to a
Yeah.
project when I'm just beginning a stage of learning? The best part best thing that you can do on your part is stop thinking what everyone else will think if I will do something wrong, right? So I can tell you with my experience during my days at LinkedIn, I once screwed up a testing thing. I was asked to test a feature. I tested it on staging data, not on prod data. I was expected to test it on prod data. So the other dependent team got their work delayed by 1 day. I was like very stressed that okay, I screwed up. Now they are going to like throw me out of the company. Then I went to my manager and I told him that okay, I did this, I lost my confidence today. And then he said, why are you thinking it? You are thinking all of this because you believe others are going to judge you. Then he told me one story that he once screwed up a code himself, not even testing or anything. He screwed up a code himself, and due to that, nobody in the world was able to open the pop-up where you actually see LinkedIn invitations. And I was like, yeah, man, you screwed up big time. This is this is bigger than me. So if you are here still, I will be there, so no issue. So at that time I realized that don't think that others are going to judge you. If you are a beginner, everyone expects beginner level mistakes from you. And if you don't make beginner level mistake, then you are like definitely in the wrong room, right? If you're thinking you're beginner in the room and you're not making beginner level mistakes, you're like kind of like advanced guy, you're in the wrong room, right? So don't worry, start contributing, talk to people. They're going to review your PR. No feature is going to go into the prod without testing, so don't worry, you're not going to break something very big. Okay. And again, have faith in yourself. Should you maintain good CGPA for better job? For on-campus placements, yes. For off-campus placement, doesn't matter. Okay, cool. I guess that was it for today's session. You guys were like a fantastic audience. I really enjoyed your questions, guys, and definitely your patience. You guys stayed till the end. I hope I was able to give some good perspective. I'm not someone who just tells you go to this website, go to that. I can share you my experience, right? What I have, I'm a 24-year-old guy, right? What do I have? I have some experience with me. I can share you my experience. And nobody in the world can tell you the steps to excel anything. The only thing that somebody can tell you is how to move forward. You have to take the step yourself only. So I believe I was able to motivate you enough. And that being said, uh, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for attending this session. Over to you,
Thank you. I would
Aniket.
like to thank Mr. Sanket Singh on behalf of IEEE-SSIT for joining us today and giving us an exclusive look into the mindset of an open source contributor. I believe that when we have welcoming communities of contributors, open source software gets better and more useful to everyone. Make sure to check out Mr. Sanket Singh's socials link given in the description. Thank you all for tuning in and making it a great success.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a great weekend ahead and keep coding, guys. Bye bye.